Hey there, and welcome to Ask Daniel number 56. Hope you're doing really well. And before we get started, just as I often say, nothing is medical advice, just general thoughts and comments that I hope will help anyone that is tuning in. That said, we have, I believe, 5 emails and 1 comment, and there's some of them I really want to get to. I felt there were some urgency there to hopefully help people that are really struggling at this point, but maybe we'll get to all of them. We'll see. So with that said, I just actually was, as I was preparing for this live, going over the questions, and I will share the screen with you where I have them. It starts with Jay here, and I was trying to highlight them. I didn't get to all of them, but I highlighted some of them. So let's get started. And as always, please chime in with the live questions, and we'll go from there. So this is from Jay, who's been contributing a lot to the channel for several months. And he writes the following: Hi, Daniel. Lately, I've been noticing I've been going to bed around 11-ish, my normal time, but I've been waking up around 1:30, 2:30, rarely 3:30 anymore. The worst part is I can't go back to sleep. I'm trying not to worry. Before I start talking about this, Jay asked me to convey that he has seen a sleep doctor that has more than 30 years of experience and never, ever, ever saw a case of fatal insomnia. And that was really reassuring to Jay, who thought he had that back several months ago. So that said, the first thing that comes to my mind, Jay, when I read this is that, the fact that you are, going to bed around 11 and waking up around 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, imagine where you are now compared to like 4 months ago, at which time point you often share that you had gone weeks without sleeping, for a minute. So it's always good to sometimes take a step back and examine, where am I now compared to where I was? You're obviously in a very much better place now. Just always good to keep that in mind. That said, okay, that doesn't necessarily help you right now. So what to do? Well, I think, when I read this, I can't go back to sleep. I'm trying not to worry. Well, I'm trying not to worry is good, of course. We all know that there is nothing to worry about in reality. It is insomnia is a perceived threat. There is not a, tangible, real threat out there. So that is always good. But that said, okay, what can you do? So when I read that, I can't go back to sleep, or I can't sleep, that immediately makes me think that this is somebody who wakes up and realizes they're awake, maybe checks the time, and then thinks, dang it, I'm awake. What am I going to do now? And when you started thinking in those patterns, you're already kind of in a trap, because you're already frustrated that you're awake and you're trying to do something to make yourself sleep. And we know this the most basic fundamental truth that everybody needs to know about sleep is the more you try, the less you get. Sleep only happens when you are not trying. So real practical here. You have to, and this, I know I'm going to start saying this more and more. It sounds kind of crazy when you hear it, but you have to actually look forward to waking up. I know it sounds insane, because who wants to do that? Well, guess what? When you get to a point where you're not worried about waking up, where it's okay, when you actually look forward to waking up, then it stops happening. It's when we fear waking up, that's the problem, because then you wake up and oh no, I'm awake. Oh no, dang it, I woke up. If it becomes I woke up, or I'm awake, all right, well, I'm gonna do this thing that I already prepared to do. So I think the best thing for you, Jay, is, okay, number one, when you wake up, if you feel pretty good, comfortable, you don't need to do anything. You just relax and think of something pleasant in bed. If that doesn't happen, if you feel kind of frustrated, then don't check the time, but be prepared, okay? Have a game plan. Be like, okay, I'm gonna read this book, or I'm gonna do this Sudoku puzzle, or I'm gonna watch some Netflix, but try not to know what time it is. But whatever you do, look forward to it. Do something that you look forward to. That will help you more than anything else. And so just, think of that, and stay in touch as always, Jay. Thanks so much for all the contributions. So yeah, stay in touch, Jay, and I hope this helps. Okay. Cool. So let's go back to our questions, and the second one came in 4 days ago, and this is from Karan. So let's read this. Dear Daniel, and by the way, check this out. So I've written down some kind of some things I often talk about, the 3 Ps. predisposing factor is something that kind of a trait that makes us more predisposed to have insomnia. Not a problem at all, but good to know about. Precipitating factor is a trigger, something that triggers insomnia, and perpetuating factor, that's the important one. That's the one here. That's the one that kind of keeps it going. It's similar to sleep effort. Sleep effort is something you do with the intent of making yourself sleep. So let's keep that in mind as we go along here. Dear Daniel, I became familiar with your channel, the Sleep Coach School, after going on Reddit and trying to find some relief to my current problem. I want to thank the person who posted about this channel on Reddit. I really, really appreciate that, getting the word out. Thank you. I'm 18 years old, and for a while now, I've been noticing I'm having issues with my sleep. Around a month ago or so, I had a few sleepless nights, which culminated in a lot of anxiety around sleep and sleeplessness. As you see, this is highlighted. This is a classic precipitating event. You know, there were a couple of sleepless nights for some reason, and then that really created a lot of anxiety. And you know, the thing here is that having a few sleepless nights is, you know, in itself not a problem, even if you become kind of a little bit anxious about it. But if you kind of like let it go at that time, if you don't react to it, it will become a it will self-resolve. Like, it won't become an ongoing thing. For that to happen, for this to become an ongoing thing, you need that perpetuating factor, which we're going to see. We're going to see about that one. We're going to find that one later in this email. That anxiety eventually cleared out, and I was able to sleep normally again. That's funny. That's exactly what I said, actually. Like, if you don't react to it, it kind of goes away. But the anxiety eventually cleared out. But I think what had happened already here is that, you know, that part of your brain that's there to kind of keep you safe was already a little bit primed there. It was already like, this is on my radar. It was kind of on your radar at this time, Karan. As of recent, I feel like my internalized stress about sleep has returned again. After my first episode of sleeplessness and panic, I adopted a bedtime routine of drinking some chamomile tea around 12:30 a.m. and trying to fall asleep around 1:30 a.m. As you can see, I've highlighted this too. This is how it starts. This is how it starts. You have some episode of sleeplessness. Your brain is kind of like, okay, this is a problem. And then it makes you do things. It tells you, like, you got to take care of this. Do something about it. You start a bedtime routine. You start kind of protecting your sleep, you know, doing things to kind of make yourself sleep. And as we know, when you try to sleep, try to protect sleep, try to like pay attention to your sleep, etc., that's when you actually sleep less. So this is how it starts. Like, we've started these perpetuating factors now. My issue now is that I'm having paradoxical insomnia and general confusion about sleep. I often feel like I've been laying in bed with my eyes closed, thus not thinking I've slept, thinking I haven't slept at all, but my family tells me they hear me snoring. This does give me some relief, and the fact that I don't feel tired at all during the day is further assurance. But I was wondering if you could give me some guidance on how to break away from the cycle and regain my sleep confidence. Look forward to your response. And then there was a follow-up message. I have no history of sleep problems before COVID-19 lockdown. This problem started with a late bedtime schedule, 4 or 5 a.m. sleeping times and waking around noon. I had a sleepless night because of some acidity and heartburn. That is actually even more clearly, that's the precipitating event. Acidity, heartburn caused sleeplessness. And that led to me panicking about sleep, eventually creating 3 4-day-long cycles, so sleep-related less stress and worry. This incident led me to sleeping on the sofa. Again, more perpetuating factors. Like, we can see how Karan went to a place where he's really trying to sleep, doing kind of like interventions and stuff, which is not helping, and it creates more interventions here. I was able to retrain my brain to return to sleeping in my bed, and I was sleeping soundly until recently. Okay, so again, we have it. Like, there was somehow the worry died down for a bit, but it was still there. The brain was still there. Sleep was still on the radar. Recently, I had another night of sleeplessness, trouble sleep, that has now started another cycle of worrying. I feel myself stressing about sleep constantly, obsessively Googling, reading Reddit posts. It's affecting my mood. Okay. I've spent a few nights trying to force myself to sleep. I think I'm going to skip. Yeah, I'm going to skip forward here. Would it be advisable for me to stay awake tonight and try to find out what time my body is naturally feeling sleepy so that I can go to sleep when I'm actually tired? Okay, let's take a step out here and just go over briefly kind of like the basic 3P model that explains why we have ongoing insomnia. So predisposing factors are things like you tend to worry, you are health conscious, you're kind of a high achiever, maybe you're a perfectionist, maybe you have a little bit OCD, maybe you're an overthinker, something like that. No problem with any of those things. But when it comes to sleep, again, all those things make you more likely to hone in on kind of a potential problem and really focus on it. And what really happens when you start having trouble is, again, your brain identifies lack of sleep as a threat, and the brain does not make any difference between a bear charging at you or sleeplessness. It treats it the same way. It's like, okay, this is a problem. I got to either fight it or I got to run away and hide from it. Okay. When the brain goes like, oh, sleeplessness is the problem, then it tries to like, fight it, like take things to make yourself fall asleep. It makes you like read up on it. That's called threat monitoring. Go to Google, Reddit, try to find what's going on. All those things make you more stressed. You do more things to sleep. You sleep less. You become more worried. You do more things. You sleep less. Yada yada yada. And we see, interestingly, with Karan's stories that this kind of cycle somehow died down. At some point, the threat monitoring system kind of died down, but not completely. Sleep was still on the radar. That's why I think it is still important for Karan here to do some education and understand what's happening to get to a point where you break the cycle forever, And this is part of it, understanding why you have insomnia. Insomnia is a reaction to a threat, but it's a perceived threat. It's not a real threat. And everything is about making your brain understand that there's no real threat out there. So I think we covered that very well. And now getting more practical. Okay, Karan, what should we be doing? Let's go to this question again. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And the question was, would it be advisable for me to stay awake tonight and try to find what time my body is naturally feeling sleepy so that I can go to sleep when I'm actually tired? I don't think so at all. Like that, what you're thinking of doing is part of kind of investigating, experimenting, trying to figure out, etc., which never really leads anywhere. What you should do is browse this channel and try to understand like basic sleep physiology. There's one video that's called like the gas and brake model. That's a very good one. But really, if you just listen into what I say, you get the full picture. So with that said, I think understanding is super important. What should we be doing? I think you should, first of all, it is good to get up about the same time every day. That is how you get some type of like a consistency, some type of predictability when it comes to your sleep pattern. And you can pick any time you want. Let's say you pick 7 a.m. I'm going to get out of bed at 7 a.m. And then it's good not to go to bed too early. Give yourself a sleep window, a time you're in bed of maybe 7 hours. So you say, I'm going to get up at 7 and I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to get up at 7 and not go to bed before midnight, around midnight or so. And apart from that, do the education I talked about, but also like try to really not do anything with that intent of sleeping. Like, if you enjoy chamomile tea, perfect. If you're drinking it because you think it will make you sleep, that's a trap. That will get you further down to the rabbit hole. So I think I'll actually end there, Karan, and say the main thing for you, which I hope this was helpful here, was just understanding what's happening, and like back away from the efforts, spend a little bit less time in bed, be consistent with your wake up time, and I think you'll do really, really, really well. Another thing you have going for you is that you haven't had trouble sleeping for that long. For somebody who's had trouble sleeping for 10 years, it is a hard pill to swallow that I just got to do less. But for you, I think that will come more easy to you. So yeah, stay in touch, Karan, and let me know what you think and how things go. And with that said, we'll move on to another email that came in about 20 hours ago, and this is from Ricardo. Hi, Daniel. Hope to find you well. I'm very well, thank you. I've been following your YouTube channel lately. I have been doing the CBTi techniques. I'm finishing my first week, so right there and then I want to say, well done, Ricardo. You not only tuned in and listened, you're actually taking action. That's amazing. It's been challenging, though, of course. The thing I find the most difficult is that at some point in the evening, I feel sleepy and very tempted to go to bed. Like this night, for example, at around 18 p.m., which, by the way, for those of you not familiar with military time, this is 6 p.m., 1800, I believe that's what you're saying, 1800, so 6 p.m. I was sleepy and wanted to go to bed, but I always fight that and try to go to bed at the beginning of my sleep window around 11 p.m. But for some reason, after I have dinner, I usually lose sleepiness. It happened this past night. I stayed late watching TV in the living room, ended up going to bed almost 1 a.m., but even then I couldn't sleep, so I came out of bed twice. I ended up sleeping around 2:30, or maybe 2.5 hours. What makes this happen? I was really sleepy at 6 p.m., but at 11 p.m., not anymore. How can I change this? Grateful for your attention. Have a good day. Absolutely. I want to say this, Ricardo, that this question, like, why is it that at like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. I'm really sleepy, you know? But then when it's time to go to bed, that sleepiness has vanished. And there are two things that are that contribute to this. And most people, including Coach Michael, I think he talks mostly about what's called conditional arousal, which is that if you have had trouble sleeping for a while, the place where you sleep becomes like associated with not sleeping, becomes associated with insomnia. So often people, like when you go to bed, like the mere act of going to bed kind of wakes you up, and that can happen certainly. And the what helps with that is not spending time in bed where you're frustrated, where you're trying to sleep, where you're annoyed, etc. And spending time in bed that is a positive time in bed, doing things you enjoy in bed and sleep in bed, and then that association will be broken. But what I think actually in your case is more what's happening, and this is a very common one too, is what I talked about in the beginning of this episode. Sleep is a passive process. The more you try, the less you get, etc. Right? So where that takes us is this. At 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., you have absolutely no desire to sleep. You don't want to sleep at that time. So sleep comes very easy to you. You know, you haven't slept well for a while. You are a bit sleep deprived. You're trying to stay awake now at 6 p.m. You want to stay awake until, at least until 11. Sleep comes very easy. But then it becomes 7, 8, and now it gets kind of closer to 11. And the closer to 11 it becomes, the more you kind of like, I hope I can sleep at 11. Maybe I hope I will retain some of the sleepiness at 11. Maybe it become, and that thinking process makes you more and more alert. And then when 11 comes, you're not sleepy at all because now you actually want to sleep, right? So that's why that happens. So what can you do about that? Well, I think it is important not to sleep at 6 p.m., you know, because then you might end up sleeping for an hour and then it becomes like the whole thing gets mixed up. So I think at that point, do try not to sleep. I think that's very good. But other than that, I think, you know, you've only done this for a week. It takes a while to see progress. I think if you just, get up at the same time every morning and then do something at 10 or 11 p.m. that you look forward to. Like watch that Netflix show, like reward yourself. Okay, finally 11 p.m. Now I get to watch this Netflix show. Instead of, oh, it's finally now I gotta sleep. No. If you kind of make yourself stay up until this time and you finally are gonna be allowed to sleep, that puts too much pressure on it. So save something that you enjoy for that last, you know, the hour before you go to bed or something like that. Look forward to it. And again, like if you can't fall asleep at 11, do something you enjoy at that time. Like try to make it a positive thing. And then, you know, when you're not trying to sleep, when you actually if you can get to a point where you kind of want to stay awake at 11, you're enjoying something, sleep will come to you. Okay, Ricardo, I hope that helped. And any follow-up questions, please let me know. I love answering any question that comes in, but I have a kind of a special affinity for like somebody who's like listening to what I talk about and then doing it. And I really want to help you, of course. All right, so let's move forward here and let me share my screen with you again. This is a message that came in from Colleen about 4 hours ago, and a little bit of background there. Colleen, I think I don't remember when we connected Colleen, but I think it was at least several weeks ago. Colleen had been doing kind of like strict, like textbook CBTi with a lot of rules, and that hadn't been working. And we talked about how, you know, most of those rules actually do not make sense. Colleen started kind of breaking some rules, sleeping better, and then lately I've kind of hit a patch of sleeping less. So let's read this. Hi, Diane. Trying so hard to keep positive and not have my mind go into that dark tunnel where it has been before. Have you seen people have improvement and then have terrible sleep and get really quite negative and anxious again and then come back strong and sleep well? Absolutely. And I'll talk about more of that in a second. For so long, my bad nights were maybe 4 or 5 hours, and that I can totally take. But this every other night of 0 to 2 hours is so hard. And then on the nights I don't fall asleep right away, my mind just immediately goes there, that I will get no sleep. Sorry to email again, and I appreciate your kindness and support so much. I want to conquer this and be strong and just not care, but right now it seems very hard to get back there. Totally get it. And I will say this, in the success stories playlist, there's an email. I think I read an email, or maybe many emails, from somebody called Ellen, and she had, this, she was very affected by her insomnia, did really well, but had a couple of times, kind of like when she completed a CBTi course, where she went a long way back, took many steps back, but then did well again, and it kind of went back into like a really struggling place, but then went back in. So I think you probably also have episodes like this one, where you go for a stretch of like sleeping very little, but then you'll do better again. And I think as long as you kind of try to be positive, try to remember everything you learned, you'll find that these episodes of little sleep will become less and less frequent, for sure. But yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of people go back like that and come back. No, nothing strange and unusual there. It's basically then that, like, your sleep is on your mind's radar, on the threat monitoring radar, and easily gets triggered. And so that's what I was thinking, like, for so long, every other night of 0 to 2 hours. And then on the nights I don't fall asleep right away, my mind just immediately goes there. I think same thing as I said to Ricardo there, you have to try to make the night, the bedtime, not about sleep, like I hope I sleep, but just look forward to something there before bed. Make it a time of enjoyment, and I think that really turns everything upside down, and your brain is like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. Wait, wasn't I supposed to sleep? Or what's going? When it becomes a positive thing, then sleep comes much easier. And I just want to say this one. I know I'm sure you know this, and you probably know I'm going to say this too. But when you say something like this, I still want to conquer this, then that to me is like those spidey sense moments. Like, okay, this person, which is you, Colleen, is like thinking, I have to crush this, conquer this, get over this, and it's all about, like, when you're thinking those terms, good things don't come your way. It's like, it's when you abandon the fight, when you leave the fight, when it's like, there is no fight. That's when you really get better. And just not care. I think that's, you're on the right track there. I think, like, really, when people say, I didn't care anymore, and then I was like, well, that's true. But if you try to tell yourself, like, I don't care about sleep, and you feel that's not true, then you're not ready for that step yet. But you can try something like, try a smaller step. Try to say something like, I've slept very little before, and I've done okay. Try to take that little step into that, and then you'll get to a point where you're like, it's okay if I don't sleep, etc. And then Colleen said, one more question. In the book, the Effortless Sleep Method, she is so strong. That is Sasha Stevens, the author. She's so strong on the thought that you should never, ever talk about your sleep problems with anyone. What are your thoughts on this? I know in the past I've talked about it too much, but I'm a woman of faith, and I have a couple of very good friends that give me a lot of prayer support. Should I just be telling them everything is great all the time, or is it okay to reach out occasionally for some extra support? Or is that giving the insomnia too much life? Just wondering your thoughts. Here are my thoughts on this one. If you tell your friends that, and this is where I maybe disagree a little bit with Sasha Stevens. Sasha, if you ever hear this, I'm a super big fan of yours, and I'm going to ask Sasha Stevens one day to come and join me here. And I see we have some live comments here. We'll get to those in a second. Thanks, Rebecca and Mary. If you tell people, like, I'm sleeping great, when you're not sleeping great, that doesn't ring true to you. That's false. That doesn't work. In fact, that's not good. If you are in a point where, like, you're sleeping a little bit better, then I think it's good to kind of emphasize that I am sleeping better. You can tell somebody, I'm sleeping better. I've had a little trouble sleeping, but I'm sleeping better. That's good. Like, affirm something that rings true to you. When you're not sleeping well, then if you kind of, without any insight and any mindfulness, just tell people, oh my gosh, my sleep is just terrible. I can't sleep no matter what I do. Like this, that I don't think ever helps. But if you give people that are close to you some insight and say, I haven't slept well for quite a while. I understand why, and really I know that the reason is that I'm paying so much attention to sleep, and I'm trying to sleep, and I'm really hoping to sleep, but it's been a little bit of a struggle. And then you can definitely try that. If you find that your friends are kind of like they don't, the reason I think it is tricky to talk to friends is that they may just go like, what are you talking about? And then you feel like the odd one out. That is a risk with it. And the other one is that people are just like, do this, do that, do this. Like they send you in different directions. But if you have friends that you're close to, you know how they're going to react, you feel like you can explain what's going on and they can still support you, no judgment, just like, then of course talk to them. You know? That's my thinking about that. So let's go into these live questions here. This is from Rebecca. I've been dealing with anxiety lately, and that's making me wake up many times throughout the night with anxiety symptoms. Do you recommend leaving the bed when I wake up panicky? Thank you. Okay, this is a good one, good question. And I want to say this. I think you often hear things like you should leave the bed when you're not sleeping, you should leave the bed in 20 minutes, things like that. And I think that there's a lot of problems with those type of recommendations. If someone like almost like a reflex says, okay, this is it, I'm awake, I gotta get out of sleep because I cannot stay in bed when I'm not sleepy, jump out of bed, that's not good, because that produces this kind of pressure to like, whenever I'm in bed, I have to sleep. I cannot be in bed if I'm not sleeping. And also, definitely avoid clock watching. Don't be like, okay, I'm gonna stay in bed, but only 20 minutes. Okay, now it's 15 minutes, now it's 12 or 30, now I can, not that one. Here's more what I think. The real problem is when you start, like when the bed becomes a place for anxiety, worrying, panic, frustration, etc. That's not good, because then you get this unhealthy association with the bed, where a place where you can't sleep, and it's not a good place, you know. So I think this. If you wake up and you feel kind of panicky, maybe about something completely unrelated to sleep, you kind of feel panicky, but you still feel good about being in bed. It still feels like a good place, a safe place, and you can do something that maybe either is like mindfulness, you know, just like focusing on something else, you feel better, or you do something you enjoy again, which I always talk about, you read a book in bed, then it's totally fine, because you're doing something that's positive, something that you enjoy, in fact, in bed. But on the other hand, if you wake up panicky and you're in bed and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try to just do some mindfulness here, maybe read a book, something like that, and it's like, no, I'm still annoyed, I'm frustrated, I don't like this, I can't sleep, and then I think leave the bed, you know. Leave the bed, do something elsewhere that is, you know, that is either, you know, something that talk about like applying mindfulness, reading a book, you do something else outside bed, and then go to bed when you feel sleepy. And I hope that makes sense, Rebecca. Let me know if I need to clarify anything there, and thank you for this live question. Mary's here. Thanks so much for being here, Mary. All right. So with that said, let us continue reading a couple of emails here. And we definitely wanted to cover this one. And the other two, I think, are not urgent, so they can wait. So if they're live questions, we can go over them as well. So let's read this. This was a comment from Jerry Mouse, just it says 2 days ago, 2 days ago, comment on Ask Daniel number 55. It goes like this. Hello, Daniel. I'm having a very nasty bout of insomnia. Let's actually highlight this, and we'll go back to this later. Having a very nasty bout of insomnia for the past 7 days, and suffering from severe anxiety, depression, daytime fatigue, and dizziness, sleepophobia, extreme fear of sporadic fatal insomnia. I started 1 week ago. I've been suffering from insomnia for the past 1.5 years and relying on 0.25 milligrams of clonazepam each night for sleep. That had worked well till about last week. Yes, occasionally I would get these consecutive 5 to 6 nights of less sleep, but things would soon return to normal. With 0.25 milligrams of clonazepam, my body, mind, brain were in a very healthy state until 7 days ago when I developed insomnia. This time it's not going away, and 0.25 milligrams of clonazepam is not working efficiently. My intellect isn't as efficient as it was 1 week ago. Plus, I'm beginning to suspect that it could be SFI or another lethal prion disorder in my brain. I'm getting sleep, but it's taking me longer and longer to fall asleep. It's getting more difficult. Plus, for the first 5 days after my insomnia started, my sleep was so light that it felt that I was not sleeping at all. But I was not aware of the time passing. But any other slight noise around me would wake me up. I could feel what's happening around. It was as if my brain couldn't shut down. Also, I got strange and vivid sensations like dreams in my sleep, and it felt as if I wasn't sleeping, I could sense activities around me. And I've been using my cell phone a lot these days as I suffer from net addiction. I don't drink or smoke, but this thing is really scaring the crap out of me, and I want things to get back to normal desperately. Let's highlight this one too. Here, I made a habit of going to bed at 2:30 in the night after switching off my phone. Sometimes I felt pressure in my head or stress and not feeling sleepy, but this seems to be something else. Due to lockdown, I can't even go for any exercise. And as nighttime approaches, my heart starts banging inside my chest. Please note that in my case, anxiety is the result of insomnia and resulting ill health and not its cause. For the past 2 days, I slept for approximately 5 to 6 hours. Yes, it's still taking me a lot of time to fall asleep, which is often an initial symptom of SFI, but 2 nights ago, I experienced deep sleep without any dreams after a gap of 5 days of impaired sleep. I still felt tired after I wake up. Anxiety made me miserable. However, it was the usual sleep that I used to have originally, and that made me feel a little better. It was deep sleep, and this time I was not aware of anything around me. I slept in the afternoon too. That made me feel a lot relaxed because it felt satisfying. But last night, as I went to bed, I tried to sleep. I could not go to sleep even though I was feeling sleepy. This is what scares me the most. It took me around 3 hours to fall asleep, and it was 6 hours of sleep and very deep sleep. I was not aware of anything. It was either REM stage or stage 4 sleep. In the morning, I felt a lot better. Still suffering from anxiety, dizziness, brain fog, and fear of SFI. Can you tell me, based on my experience, is it possible that it's just the earliest phase of SFI, or is it true that because I entered deep sleep at least once, SFI is ruled out? Or okay, should I be concerned, etc.? What do you think? I'm in a state of extreme fear and confusion. So I want to say a couple of things here. Firstly, this, you know, you can tell here that Jerry's very scared, very, very upset. A lot of things are going on. And what I'm about to say right now is not to belittle what's going on with you, Jerry. Not at all. Not at all. But this type of comment, type of email is a very common one. It is very common for someone to write an email or a comment in a state of kind of this, I call it pinballing. The brain's just going right and left, up and down, like it's like this state of like panic around sleep. And I think that the main thing I want to say here is that, of course, for anyone, if you're concerned about your health, then talk to your doctor, of course, right? But all these things that we hear about are easily explained by what's called hyperarousal. Hyperarousal is just like when your brain and your mind, kind of your emotional state, isn't that high alert? It's like threat monitoring. It's like, your brain's like looking out for potential threats, and it thinks actually found a threat, and the threat is like lack of sleep, and it's going into this direction of like trying to find out what's going on and doing things. And now it's honed in on this SFI, this kind of condition, and dizziness, feeling like you're not sleeping at all, like being very sensitive, noise sensitivity, like blurry vision. All these things are super common when you have hyperarousal. And so that's the main thing I want to say here is like nothing that I read in this comment is that unusual. So that's kind of number one. Number two, the whole thing about SFI there, SFI is very misunderstood. Like, it is not an insomnia. People that have it do not struggle with sleep or worry about their sleep. They're just like that patient with like late stage Alzheimer's that has no clue what's going on because they're in such they just don't even have the capacity to think anymore. So that's, I think, the most important thing there. And I also want to, there was something that I highlighted here about how like I desperately, or maybe I didn't highlight it, but here. I want things to get back desperately. And I completely understand that. But the insight here is that the more you want to sleep, the more you kind of praying for it, hoping for it, begging for it, negotiating for it, just want to sleep, the less you get. It's all about like taking those steps back and be like, when you can get to a point where you're like, it's okay if I don't sleep too much tonight. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing has happened in the past. I've had insomnia in the past. I'm still here. I'm still okay. That's when magic happens. That's when you really start sleeping better. And by the way, another thing I want to comment on is like, you were taking this medication and you were doing well for a long time, and now you're not sleeping. that's not uncommon at all either. It's just like the hyperarousal is overpowering anything, and medications don't actually make you sleep. So it can often seem like if you're taking medication and then you still sleep, that means like you can think that means things are getting worse because this stopped working. In reality, it's not like that. It's just like you're just having insomnia because you're so hyper aroused. And I hope this helped, Jerry. And please like stay in touch and ask more questions and learn, like educate yourself on the channel. And I think this panic state will pass, and then you'll see like Jay, who started talking about here. He's gotten to a point where he's no longer worried about SF5, which is fantastic. Colleen says thank you. I want to thank you, Colleen, and you'll totally get there. Just stay in touch, and you'll do fine. And Y-Scans asks, did you release the book? I thank you for asking that, because that gives me a chance to say, talk about it. I am writing a book, everyone. It's going to be called Set It and Forget It. It's not out yet, but I have all the illustrations are in, the manuscript is done. So probably in like maybe 3 weeks or something like that. But I'll, of course, keep you guys informed about that. We are at 35 minutes. We definitely have more time. Let us go over one or maybe even two more questions. And so the next one is, I think it's from Andrew. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So a quick backstory. Andrew asked me if Nick Wignall, so my friend and psychologist, was going to come back on the channel. I know he's extremely busy. I'd love to have him more often, but I can't ask him right now. So I said, I'll be happy to try to answer it, because I'm learning a lot of anxiety. It's very similar to insomnia. So anyway, here's the question. Here's one of my questions about anxiety, which emerged out of my insomnia some years ago. About 2 months into the bout of insomnia, I began to startle really easily from very small sounds, which most people probably wouldn't even notice. Although I'm past the insomnia now, the startle issue is still with me. It only happens when it's very quiet around me. For example, when I'm resting or reading on the couch, not when I'm doing more active things. It doesn't result in me moving or hiding or making any noise. It is just an internal jump. But the things that trigger it can be really small, like someone sniffing or moving their legs, the swish sound of clothing. I was never a very particularly jumpy person before then. Like if someone goes boo behind me, I wouldn't have startled. In fact, I don't think I would now, as long as I was active at the time. I suspect that how it started during my insomnia was from me being in bed, being frightened of not sleeping, and hearing little sounds like raindrops on the window or the house settling clicks or clunks, thinking that they were part of why I couldn't go to sleep, and so anticipating and fearing them. In a way, it seems like a PTSD type thing, and I wonder whether seeing a specialist in that might help me. I've tried doing my own version of exposure therapy, where I have made a recording on my phone, which is mostly silent and has little click sounds a few times every minute. I play that, and although I can't stop myself from startling, I practice letting go of the frustration that follows it, hoping to desensitize myself. I can't say it has had much effect, if any, to be honest, although it doesn't seem to have made it worse. Do you have any thoughts? Yeah, I think firstly, like how it started, I think that sounds, very plausible. And I think the following, that when it comes to like, it is very common for people that have like active insomnia to be like, I hear every little thing, I'm actually never fully asleep. And as you're probably not surprised to hear me say, I definitely think it is because of hyper arousal. Your brain is in this mode of like, there is still hyperarousal can be very sneaky. You can feel kind of calm, there's nothing going on. But I think when you notice these things that startle you, that is a sign of hyperarousal, and it's been kind of conditioned for these very like minute, like very small sounds, for probably the reason you said it. Now, speaking of Nick, the thing that, I really picked up on from him was this one, that when you have an emotion or an occurrence or something that's going on, and that becomes undesirable, if you don't want to feel anxious and you do things to become less anxious, then you're training your brain that anxiety is bad, and then anxiety becomes a bigger part of your life. Kind of the more you try to resist it, avoid it, not having it, the more you're training to your brain that it is bad, and the more it happens. And I think that applies to really everything. including these the startle response from like almost no sound, from this very little sound. So I think the key really, as always, is to try to change the kind of like the narrative from this is an odd phenomenon that I don't want, and these efforts of trying to not have it, to something like it's totally fine if that happens. In fact, I'm gonna think of it as a positive for some reason, like it doesn't cause me trouble sleeping anymore, or it's never really bothered me that much, or it's okay if it happens. And when you get to a point where you're like, it's totally fine, you're not trying to resist it, you're not trying to figure it out, you're not trying to avoid it, you don't look at it as a problem, then I think your brain will start being like, oh, okay, it's not actually a threat, there's no problem. It can kind of completely shut off that hyperarousal mechanism. So yeah, I think those are really my thoughts, Andrew. Let me know what you think, if it makes sense. And if you think this made sense, then please send me your other anxiety questions. But at some point, Nick will be back, and definitely we'll talk with him more. So yeah, thanks, Andrew, and stay in touch. And then Colleen says, I know that is why the magic happens when you can't let it go. I have had it. It's just really hard to let those thoughts go when you're so sleep deprived and you fear nothing will change ever. Yeah, totally get it. And I think what I can say, here is that from the inside perspective, you easily get to that point where you're like, nothing will ever change. And by the way, I've meant to make this episode, this kind of insomnia insight episode, where I want to call it like the meta episode, where I talk about like this YouTube channel and how so much I learned about insomnia applies to anything, which is something like, for example, I've gone like a week without anybody sending me a question, and then I go into this like, what's wrong? Was it something I said? What can I change? Why isn't anybody emailing a question? But of course, then there's the question, like it's hard to let go when you're kind of in it. But my point here is that when you look at it from the outside, if I'd said that to someone, they'd probably be like, what are you talking about? Just wait, it'll be fine. And they were right. But when you look at it from the outside, I can totally see that things change. Things change to anyone that doesn't jump into the rabbit hole again and start like, oh, I got to do something to sleep. I got to take this pill. I got to do this thing. As long as you don't do that, things will get better. And again, for you, Colleen, or from maybe Andrew, from anyone else, like it's hard to see that from the inside, but from the outside, things do change. Things definitely change. To the better, of course. All right. Rex says, is it normal to get that confused feeling right when you're waking up and when you don't remember where you are? Lasts for a second too, and it's rare for me, but it's happened twice this week. All right. Yeah, I think what you're describing here, Rebecca, is maybe a shorter version, but it's still, I would say this definitely sounds like what we call sleep inertia. And it's that feeling again when you're waking up and you're like, what's going on? Who am I? Like, it's almost like depersonalization. You don't know who you are, where you are, what's going on. And that is very common, definitely. But now it's rare for me, but it's happened twice this week. What I want to say there is that it's with so many like phenomena in the insomnia universe, if you want to call it that, particularly these like sleep-wake transitional things. For example, like the hypnic jerks, the hypnic awareness, just like I was about to sleep, I became aware of it, or the other ones too, kind of sleep paralysis, or this one too, like sleep inertia, is that there's nothing strange with them. They're just like an overlap of sleep states. That's, for example, sleep paralysis is an overlap of like REM sleep and wakefulness. Sleep inertia is kind of an overlap of kind of deeper sleep and wakefulness. And there's nothing strange with them. But sometimes when they happen like twice in a week, that it seems like some kind of clue. It seems like something odd is going on. And what happens whenever you start thinking those terms is that it takes you into the direction of like, I got to figure out what's going on. Something is a little bit off. Maybe I should do something differently. And when you're kind of thinking those terms, you are kind of going along with that threat monitoring your brain, the part of your brain that's trying to make you find things that are off and odd. and the more you kind of go in that direction, the more bizarre things happen. And so I want to say it's nothing unusual, strange with this at all. And I think the more you approach it that way, the less it's gonna bother you. It may still happen, but if you think of it as like, yeah, it happened again, but that's all right, then you're not going to pay attention to it. And guess what? Here, my point here is that you don't recall this happening maybe for years. It may have happened. It may have happened, but you didn't actually pay any attention to it, so you don't even remember that it happening. And that's often with like the sleep jerks and things like that, is that a lot of people have them, but when they stop kind of like worrying about them or wondering what happened, etc., they may not actually happen so much less, but it's like we don't experience it. We don't remember them that much. I think that's a real important thing there. So I think let's conclude here. And I want to really thank Colleen, Rebecca, Weiss, and Mary for sending some live comments here. Everybody that has been contributing with emails as well. And if you like what you're hearing here, then definitely check out thesleepcoachschool.com. We have our sleep coaching master program where you become your own sleep coach, which I think is so important. And we also have a program for anyone out there that wants to become a sleep coach, which is really fun. At least I think so. All right, so thanks everyone, and I'll see you soon. Until then, take it easy.